When nations go to war, they crawl to it. They take their time. War is not something you rush into, but in Nigeria of today, as of now, it's pretty obvious that the nation is intentionally, literally rushing itself to war, and the drums of war are beating all over the place. And you wonder why. Well, I have something very, very deep and important to share with you. Gavin Williamson was the Secretary of Defense under Theresa May in the United Kingdom. And so Williamson was fired because he leaked a national security document that detailed how they intended to invade Africa with their military. They want to re-invade Africa militarily. And when they were reporting that, what you read or what you're reading in the news is that Gavin Williams wanted to invade Africa. I'm going to read you something the way they put it in the news, and then I will tell you what I know. So he says, a leaked national security document seen by the Times also suggests that Williamson drew up plans for the British Armed Forces to be sent to at least 5 African countries, including Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt. The plans were reportedly for peacekeeping initiatives. However, Ministry of Defense officials told the paper that Williamson wanted to find excuses to send in troops. They added he wanted to invade Africa. He made it clear that he was keen to send the troops in. Do you see the way they reported that? They put it on Williamson, that he's the one who wanted to invade Africa. And I want to ask you a very simple question. How is it possible? And I know Williamson claims to be a very powerful guy, and I think he might be a powerful guy because I've heard him, say that he put Theresa May in office and that he can also take her out of office. And you see, Theresa May wanted him out and he got fired. And shortly after he got fired, Theresa May is on her way out too. Can you imagine? So he must be a powerful guy. But just tell me, how in the world is it possible that one Williamson, Secretary of Defense, can hatch the plans alone by himself, his own idea alone, to invade nation states in Africa, not one, nations, starting with at least 5, including Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Egypt. Are you kidding me? Just Williamson's plan? And I'm sure some people bought into that. No, Williamson was leaking a national security plan. It is for the United Kingdom. It is their nation's plan. They want to re-invade Africa. They want to re-colonize Africa, this time around by force, using their collaborators on the inside. All the colonial masters, they are on their way back to Africa. And that's what this young man leaked. What is the connection between the leaked document or his plan to invade Africa and the RUGA that we're dealing with in Nigeria? Let me explain that to you. You see, according to the document, and this is from the news website I just read now, they said he is looking for a reason to send in the soldiers. And the soldiers are going to come in as peacekeepers. But how can there be peacekeeping force if there is no war? You see why the RUGA thing happening in Nigeria is 100% made in Britain. It is so very British. But this is what nobody will ever tell you this. Because the British, the colonials, the Illuminati, they are masters of illusion. In line with the plans of the UK national security, which was leaked by Gavin Williamson, what they want to do is that They want to make sure that Nigeria is rushed to war immediately. They actually literally can't wait for the war to start immediately. That's why the drums of war are beating everywhere. This is why the Fulanis are unhinged. This is why they are doing all kinds of stuff, and Buhari is not saying anything. People who should talk are not talking. You know why? Because Buhari is a British asset. This is why they would never ever allow any other person to replace him. This is why Adeboye too is not talking. Why? You know why? Because Adeboye also is a British asset. You can take that to the bank that I told you. That's why if you look at Pastor Adeboye, Pastor Adeboye would never in his life stand against anything that Buhari stands for, or stand for anything that Buhari stands against. In other words, both of them would never go on the opposite direction with the colonial masters, because they are all agents of the colonial masters. If you doubt me, take your mind down to memory lane and cast your mind forward into the future and tell me if I'm lying. Pastor Adeboye endorsed his pastor and his protege to go and be with Buhari and become his vice president way in 2015, after he had given Jonathan a veiled endorsement. And the church denied that he did it, and now we have the proof and the evidence that he did it. Oshimbanjo on Channels Television admitted that he sought his consent, and Pastor Adeboye gave his consent.
I would certainly not contest elections or do any public thing without at least seeking his consent and ensuring that I discuss it with him in full. Yes.
And that was what swayed the whole Christian vote in the favor of Buhari. And so many Christians began to think that, oh, there must be something that Adeboye saw in Buhari that they couldn't see. So a lot of Christians were moving in his direction. When Buhari was away from Nigeria for 3 months, more than 3 months, everybody expected Adeboye to speak up. He did not. Rather, he went to London to visit Buhari to give him a veiled endorsement, presenting a book to him. Why is he doing all this? Because that's what the colonials wanted. The colonials who kept him in London for more than 3 months, refusing to let anybody take over, they wanted him in power because they wanted to use him to accomplish this whole re-invasion of Africa. And so Adeboye could never go against it, because he too is a British asset in Nigeria. When the killings of Christians were going on in Nigeria, everybody was speaking. Bishop Oyedepo spoke. Dr. Paul Enenche spoke. Issa Ebumba spoke. All these men, their churches belong to the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, and the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN. All those people spoke regardless. But when he came to Adeboye, Adeboye said, if CAN and PFN have spoken, their reaction is my own reaction. So Adeboye refused to speak because he said that CAN and PFN have already spoken. What does that tell you? It tells you that if the colonials were on the side of Buhari, if the colonials enjoyed what was happening, they loved the fact that the killings are going on. That's why there's no reaction from the British embassy. They love it. And so because they love it and they are not giving any reaction, Adeboye would never be able to give any reaction, because being an asset means that wherever your colonial masters are standing, that's where you're going to stand. Check out everything. Go back into memory lane. Anywhere Buhari stands, that's where you always find Adeboye, not on the side of the people. And this is why I keep telling our people, we need to wake up. Look at the moment because that thing happened, there was a reaction from the presidency. Loretta Omoche reacted, they should arrest him. And then suddenly, there was a reaction from another presidency stooge, which is Durotoye. I mean, of course, I told us already about the whole youth presidency nonsense they created by the European intelligence. Okay, so all those guys who were part of it are assets of the cabal. So Durotoye reacted, and the next minute, the same Adeboye who did not have an opinion when it was time to speak up against the killings in Nigeria, even when more than 200 Christians, including a pastor, were killed in one day, Adeboye didn't have an opinion. Other preachers had an opinion. He didn't have an opinion. Suddenly, when he came to Koza, Adeboye found his voice. What does that tell you? This man, I told you, take it to the bank. He is a British colonial asset. Okay, let's get back to Gavin Williams. And so, they want to reinvade Nigeria. But where is all this going to? You know, I cry and weep for our churches today because our churches have become so carnal, so materialistic that they're no longer telling you about the second coming of Christ. But I will tell you something that will shock you. There's a man called Albert Pike. Albert Pike was the chief or the grand wizard of Illuminati, and he, like Nostradamus, he had the power to see into the future and say things that would happen. Albert Pike spoke many years ago, and he said in time to come that Islam will be used to destroy Christianity. Christianity is the biggest stumbling block they have to achieving one world religion, because you know, at the end of the day, before the Antichrist shows up in person, there has to be a one world religion and there's going to be a one world government, right? So he said Islam will be used to destroy Christianity. And when that has happened, they will now turn on Islam, destroy Islam, and then everybody will come down to a place where you have the New Age religion. Write this down that I said to you today. The religion that will be on earth when the Antichrist comes is going to be called the New Age religion. And the place where you're going to be worshiping is going to be ecumenical centers. You will not be found in any church that has a name. Everybody will be worshiping in an ecumenical center. That's why there's a big ecumenical center built in Abuja. Pastor Adeboye has gone to commission another one built in Rivers State. The same Pastor Adeboye has also gone to lay the foundation for another one to be constructed in Akwa Ibom State. Research what I'm telling you. In the ecumenical center, all the gods and all the religions will be under one roof, worshiping different gods in the same place. If you don't enter ecumenical center to worship God and set up your own church, you will be labeled a terrorist. Write what I'm telling you down. This is what is coming. The churches are going to be outlawed. Everybody will have to go there, because the reason the one world religion is going to be formed is they're going to say it is for the sake of peace, that there's a lot of acrimony, there's a lot of fighting amongst religions. So we brought this ecumenical movement, we brought this one world religion so that they will have peace. In other words, if you are not following the peace, if you are not going the path of peace, it means you are an enemy. So you are a terrorist. You will be arrested and destroyed. So if you want to worship, you have to go inside that place. You have to be worshiping with a Hindu, with a Muslim, with a Buddhist, all of them is under one roof. That is what is unfolding before our eyes, but we do not even know it. Why did England, a whole England, remember, give me England or I die, Methodists, all these powerful ministries, evangelical ministries stemmed from England. Today, England has fallen to Islam. And it's not because Islam conquered England. It is intentional. It is intentional because they know that Islam will be used to psychologically and physically conquer the consciousness of Christianity first of all, and then the existence of Christianity. That's why a guy called Tommy Robinson, I fought for him one time. There was a time I fought for him on Twitter, and he was trending all over the place. He needed freedom because he was exposing the gangs of foreign Middle Eastern guys who were raping people. They establishing mosques everywhere. And they were oppressing him in his own nation. Today, Tommy Robinson has put out a video to Donald Trump seeking asylum in the United States of America. A British citizen, because he says that Britain has fallen. You can look it up online. They want to use Islam to destroy Christianity in Nigeria. And that is why you have RUGA. That is why you have. So when this whole RUGA thing happens and the war takes place in Nigeria, as everybody is preparing for war right now, you know what is going to happen? Before the war even lasts up to 2 weeks, the British guys, the British soldiers will land in Nigeria. They will land in Nigeria. Oh, we are here for peacekeeping. And when they come this time, they will not shift an inch. They will spread everywhere and they will take over and stay until they have accomplished the aim of neutralizing everything that has to do with Christianity and then taking over everything. Remember, Ambazonia in is it western or southern Cameroon, the English-speaking part of Cameroon, for the past 2-3 years, they've been at war. They started oppressing them. This situation is just like what the Igbos are going through under Buhari's regime. Oppressing them like there's no tomorrow. They went to the parliament, they complained, they did everything. Nobody paid attention to them. And all of a sudden, they were convinced to pick up arms and go to war. As soon as they had barely even picked up their arms to war, before we started seeing videos that were leaked of French soldiers on ground. French soldiers were already on ground in their territory taking over. So the guys and the citizens have now left their villages and run into the bush, and these people are on the ground now taking over. The resources now, they don't have access to it anymore. That's why they can't wait for Nigeria's own to start. That's why you're getting 30 days ultimatum. That's why everything is so provocative. Things don't make sense anymore. How can you just tell somebody to give you land by force? You have seen videos of men talking about foreigners who can't even speak English, who can't even speak Hausa. So these are not even Hausa people. These are guys from Chad and Mali and Niger invading Nigeria. They want the war to start so they can move in. Nigeria will now quickly say, oh, Britain, come and help us. This is why I said we have to pray, my people. When I said let us pray, this is what I had in mind. You see, we must definitely defend ourselves by the grace of God. We will do whatever it takes to defend ourselves. But I want you to take this home with you today. That the war that is looming is by design. They want it to happen. So even as you are also joining to beat the drums of war, have it in the back of your mind that in that war we are going to be the biggest losers, all of us, and the British will be the greatest winners. That's why I've been praying. The Lord, if it is possible, and I know it is, our best bet, our greatest help will need to come from the United States of America. A diplomatic pressure on them that will scare them away from pushing for war. You know why? Because if we don't do that, the British want the war to happen so that they can come in. And I tell you one thing that is very dangerous happening now. You know, Donald Trump really wants to help, but the British will be scaring him diplomatically. They're going to threaten him that if he doesn't stay away, they're going to mess things up for him up in North American and South American areas. Like, look at Venezuela, look at all those areas. They can pull strings to mess things up for him. So they're going to tell him, stay away. You don't know anything about Africa. We own these nations. If they belong to us. You were not even born when our forefathers owned this country. So Trump, stay away. So the only thing that can make Trump to intervene against their will is if the God of heaven steps into this equation and makes him to disobey and to call their bluff and move forward to do this. If not, everything I'm telling you, please write it down. If not, we are cooked. And this is why I'm asking for us to pray. That's why we started a prayer program on Facebook, Joseph Okechukwu on Facebook, midnight, every midnight, throughout the month of July. And we fast too. You can fast 6 to 12, 6 to 1, 6 to 3, 6 to 6, whichever one, just do it. We fast and we pray. I'm telling you, I have a lot of information, and that's why I know that the only chance we have is prayer. We're going to prepare to defend ourselves too. I'm not putting that out, but pray, because this is what is looming. God in heaven and Him alone will help us. I am so convinced that God is going to help us. So don't lose hope. Okay? Don't lose hope. Our Father will help us. Amen.